with that, my time is up. As I mentioned, just feel free to message me over on Instagram. Please don't message me here. I'm trying to clear, still trying to clear my Clubhouse messages. So message me Bootcamp 101 or Strategy 101 over on Instagram. And with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to...
That would be me. What's going on, Marvin?
Hey, man. How you doing, my man?
I'm doing excellent. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad at all. Fantastic to pass the mic to you. We don't get to connect very often, actually. I think I'll message you. I definitely want to connect with you off Clubhouse for sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely do that. You should come to Miami. It's nice and 90 degrees every day here for about 6 months straight.
Listen, yeah. You don't need to ask me twice. Miami, I like Miami a lot.
Hey,
yeah.
Marvin.
That's all I'm going to say. I like Miami a lot.
Not this month, right, Dre? Hey, Marvin, this is Susie. I just want to thank you, if you don't mind, Dre, for making the point of having both roadmaps. I now do a lot more consulting in businesses, but when I was in full-time private practice with leaders, that was always the question. How do I make sure I don't bankrupt my relationships while I'm building my business? And I just appreciate you making both of those important in a parallel way. Thank you for that.
No, thank you. Thanks so much for saying that. I really appreciate the feedback, and it's something that's important to me. Actually, it's something that I do more work on now as well, because a lot of the strategies within business are similar to what you would need to do or put in place for your life. So thank you so much, Susie. Over to you, Dre.
Appreciate it, Marvin. And one thing you could do, Marvin, you could come to TEDx next year. It'll be in April. I know I will be there. I know a bunch of BWC people usually come to TEDx, so that'd be a good place for you to show up.
What is April? Is the end of April, beginning of April next year?
April 2nd, 3rd, and 4th.
Okay, I'll look up that. I'll look that up for sure. I went to Grant was over in the UK. He doesn't come over here very often, but when he was here, I went to that event. That was really, really good.
Yeah, well, if you can make it, also in the wintertime too. I mean, by April it'll be hot again, but in the wintertime, I know it gets kind of cold out there in the UK, so you might want to think about that too.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, good stuff. Mary Lynn, you had said something. I didn't hear what you said there. What were you saying? Mary Lynn, you there? Going once, going twice. We'll see if she comes back in later. But good morning, everybody. My name is Dre Baldwin. For those of you who don't know me, I'll introduce myself in a second. But before we get started, let me just quickly reset the room. Make sure everybody knows where you are. You are in the Breakfast with Champions. What we do here is offer everybody a seat at the table for motivation and inspiration. And there's one other thing that I'm forgetting, but I don't have it in front of me. But motivation, inspiration, and all that positive stuff. Education. There we go. Thank you, Christina. So those things that we give you every single day here at BWC. I usually have a segment at this time on Mondays. I'm filling in here today for one of our great hosts who was unavailable. I'm only going to go for about 30 minutes here today. And what I usually do, for those who don't know, I usually offer people a couple different topics and let them vote on it. But being that our time is short, I'm going to just choose the topic here today arbitrarily. And we'll get into that in a second. What we're going to talk about today is how business is a contact sport. I'll explain that metaphor, what it means, and how you can apply it in a moment. But first, let me just introduce myself. My name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year pro athlete, author of 33 books. I've done 4 TEDxTalks, created this whole brand called Work on Your Game, where what we do here is take the mental tools and the strategies to help athletes get to the top 1% in the sports world. And then we take those same principles, strategies, and techniques, and we apply those tools to the business world to help professionals like yourselves perform at your highest level, do so consistently in your business. So does that all make sense to everybody? So that's what we're going to talk about here today, is one of those professional topics. And again, it is business is a contact sport. And I like to leave some time at the end of every segment for some open conversation. So I'll go for about 20-ish minutes here, hopefully, and then we'll leave time for about 5 minutes of conversation. So anything I say here that catches your ear or anything you want to add or ask, take a note of it, jot it down, or remember it. You want to trust your long-term memory. 20 minutes is a long-term memory thing, and we'll get to it in the last 5 or so minutes of this segment. So this is about, what we're going to talk about here today is about the rough and tumble, so to speak, side of business, a part of business that a lot of people don't often talk about in a real way. You can hear it in a real way here at BWC, but it isn't always talked about in a real way. But you're going to get an understanding of it through what I'm going to share here in this segment. And for those of you who don't know what a contact sport is, let me just explain that metaphor. A contact sport is any sport in which contact is actually allowed per the rules. So if you think of a sport like golf or tennis, there's no physical contact between the competitors in golf. I mean, it's not that they can't shake hands, but what I mean is when Tiger Woods is lining up his drive, the other golfer can't come and bump into him to mess him up. Or in tennis, there's a net in between the two players, so they never actually make physical contact with each other. But in other sports, you think of a sport like boxing. I just came from the boxing gym this morning. That's all contact. The only way the game is actually happening is when there's contact happening. There's physical contact between the fighters in a boxing match, or hockey, where the players can bump into each other, or football, either American football, where one of the goals is to knock the other guy's head off. They changed the rules so where you can't do that as much, but generally that's the rule. And even soccer, there's physical contact. Now, there's excessive contact, which they call a foul, such as in basketball, but contact is allowed. So a contact sport is simply a sport in which physical contact between the combatants is allowed and actually encouraged. Now, today I'm going to explain to you metaphorically how this also applies in business. So, and this is not something that you should whine and cry about or lament or be sad or scared about. It's just something that you need to adjust yourself to. And this is one of the principles of what Work on Your Game is about, which is understanding what the game is that you're in, then adjusting your game to match that game, playing the game at the highest level. As a result of that performance, you produce results. And when you produce results, you get rewards, which is whatever you want: likes, followers, happiness, hugs, money, etc., etc. So let's get into it. Point number one. Topic again today is how business is a contact sport. And I want to see how many points I have here today. I believe I have 3. Yes, I have 3. Point number one is this: the days of coming up with an idea, slapping it up on a website, sending out 1 or 2 messages to the world to let the world know that you have this new idea, this new thing, and then the money comes rolling in. Those days are long gone. I don't know if any of you was around in those days. And when I say those days, I'm referring to, this is probably between the year 2000, or let's just say up to 2010. Is there anyone here who was selling things online before 2010? Put the number 1 in the chat. If you were selling things online before 2010, through your own platforms. You had your own platform and you were selling stuff online pre-2010. So I don't mean on eBay, or if you were really early to Amazon, early adopter to Amazon. Was anybody selling anything online before 2010? I'm not seeing any comments in the chat. So maybe either y'all haven't warmed up to me yet, or nobody was selling anything online before 2010. So what I'm telling you is those days are gone. Even if you were around for those days, they're not here anymore. And if you weren't around, then you never knew them. So the real work that must be done in order for your business to sustain is takes a little bit more effort than what it took back then. And the reason why you could do that back then is simply because a lot of us were on the internet, but not a lot of us were actively producing on the internet. We were consuming. So between 2000 and 2010, that's when pretty much all of us started to get computers, internet access, smartphones. Even if we didn't have them at home, we had the computer lab. I remember when everyone would go to the computer lab in college. I don't know if I'm dating myself by saying that, but there was a computer lab. Everybody was sitting in the computer. We would all get on the internet. So even if we didn't have computers in our houses or computers on our phones, which was probably started to become ubiquitous around 2010, everyone had access to the internet and we were all consuming, but most of us were not doing much producing. It was around 2010 when that flipped and everybody started producing. Nowadays, everybody produces. Like all of us who are here on Clubhouse, we are all actively producing on the internet. And because of that, there's a lot more competition. The blue ocean has become red in some spaces. So now we got to do some real work in order to make this happen. So now with that groundwork laid, let me move on to point number 2. What we're talking here today is how business is a contact sport. So this is where the contact sport of it comes in. And I mean this literally. And when I say literally, it doesn't mean you got to go out and you got to physically bump into your customers. But what I mean here is you need to actually make contact. You need to be consistently making contact. You can't just put something out there and put out an email or put a link up and just let Google do its thing and everything's going to come to you. Any of you has tried that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Probably didn't go too well. So here's my question to you. These are some rhetorical questions I want to share with you. How often are you making contact with the people with whom you would like to do business. Let me say that, ask the question again. This is a rhetorical question that you should just ask yourself. How often are you making active contact with the people with whom you would like to do business? So over here at Work on Your Game, one thing that we do is I like to do media appearances, appearing on other people's platforms, whether they have a YouTube show, radio shows, believe it or not, is still a thing. Guest posting on somebody's blog or website, or being interviewed on someone's podcast, which they might either do on a podcast app or on video. And every single day, we are gathering new leads, finding new shows that match topics that I could talk about and putting them into our CRM. Every day, we're sending out messages to these people to let them know, hey, here's what we got. Here's what we offer. Here's how it's a good match for your audience. And we personalize our messages, by the way. So this is not just clicking a button and we send 1,000 emails. That there are some PR companies robbing entrepreneurs who do that. That does not work. But we actually personalize those messages. So each one of those has to be personally made for people that we're sending them out to. And then we have to follow up, because not everybody's going to respond to you the first time you reach out. So we have long follow-up sequences. We might need to reach out to someone 6, 7, 8 times before we get a response, whether it be positive, yes, let's do it, or negative, no, we're not interested, or we get nothing and we got to go through the whole sequence all over again, or we got to extend our follow-up sequence. The whole point is, I'm not telling you that to impress you, but to impress upon you that we're consistently reaching out to people who we want to work with in a collaborative way. Now, as far as emails or text messages, reaching out to our actual consumers, because the first thing I'm talking about, those are collaborators, people who have their own platforms. We're not trying to sell them anything financially. We're selling them me and saying, hey, have Dre on your platform, because if I can get in front of those people's audience in my thing. So that's the reason why we like to collaborate. But when it comes to consumers, people who might just pull out their wallet and buy something, I aim to send out anywhere from 750,000 to 1 million emails every single month. I just checked this morning. In the month of July, we sent out 768,000 so far this month. I'm probably not going to get to 1 million. It's not enough days left, even if I send email every day, depending on who I send it to, what segment of the list. But we try to reach out to our audiences. Anybody who's on my email list, you get an email from me at least 5 days a week, usually 6, sometimes 7. When it comes to the text messages, I send out a daily motivation text message every single day, free of charge. You can get that text. I'll put the number in the chat here. Any of you want to get that text, you can just send me a text at the number that I put in the chat, and you get that daily motivation text every day. I mean, it's literally called the daily motivation. And the reason I do that is not for my health, or not just because I like to pay bills to the SMTP server and to the text message community app, because those do cost money. The more messages you send, the more it costs you. I do that so I can stay in constant contact with my audience. And I'm not telling you that you need to do it that way, the way that I do it, but you do need to have you need to have a process for constantly staying in front of the people who you want to do business with, whether those are people you collaborate with, people you are going to sell to, even people you're going to buy from. You probably are watching them because you want to see what they're doing, to see what they have to offer, so that you can buy it whenever you're ready to buy it. So you can't post something one time these days and expect people to come running to get it. Now, you may have some early adopters who will do that, but not everybody's going to do that. And you also can't expect to have something and think people are going to know about it without you doing the work to let them know that you have it and letting them know what they need to do to get it. All right, you have to lay it out for them. All right, this is what I need. This is what I got. This is what I have going on. This is what you need to do to get it. So you have to stay in contact with your audience, again, consistently. You have to find different ways of contacting them. So when I talk about that follow-up sequence that I have for people we want to collaborate with, we don't send the same message 8 times. Each one of those messages had to be unique. All right, what's a different way we can say the same thing? All right, we're trying to get the same point across. We have the same call to action, which is respond to us and let us know we can make this happen. But how can I go about it in a different way? So it's not like I'm sending 8 of the exact same message to this person over the course of, who knows, 8 weeks, 60 days, 6 months, however long it takes. So this phrase, contact sport, is a double entendre in this sense. It's contact in that it's going to be rough and not always easy, because sometimes you might send out a bunch of emails to a bunch of people over an extended period of time and you're not really getting any engagement. You're not really getting any response. And you're looking at yourself and you're looking at your materials and you're like, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with my product? What's wrong with my audience? What's the problem? It might not be anything wrong with it. Sometimes it's just rough and tumble. Sometimes it's just a contact sport in that way, but it's also a contact sport in that you need to be literally making contact with people in order for business to be conducted. This also refers to the challenges you will have in business when it comes to now, once you get in touch with someone, now you have to close the deal. Now you got to find new clients. You got to find the right leads. You got to generate attention, and you have to solve problems in general. Once you start actually making money, there's a whole new set of problems that are going to come in your business. And every level you get to, there's a new set of problems, not elimination of problems, just different, higher quality problems, but problems nonetheless. So as an entrepreneur, your number one job is to solve a problem better than that problem is currently being solved. That's your reason for existing in the marketplace. So each one of you as an entrepreneur who's listening to this should know, what problem are you solving and why is your solution better than all the other solutions that are out there? Why should someone pick you amongst the other choices that they have, being that you're probably not the only one who's offering a solution to problem X, whatever that problem is. So if you have a hamburger stand, you're not the only person in the world offering hamburgers. So why should I buy your hamburger instead of a McDonald's hamburger or a Burger King hamburger or Eat at Joe's hamburger or whoever else has a hamburger stand? If you can't answer that question, you don't know why you exist in the marketplace, you shouldn't be in business. So what is your reason for contacting people and letting them know that they should come to you as opposed to their other options, which again are your competitors, and also their other options of doing nothing? Right? I don't have to eat a hamburger. What if I want a hot dog? Why should I get a hamburger instead of a hot dog? Why should I get a hamburger instead of a salad bowl? Why should I get a hamburger instead of going to the Italian restaurant across the street from you? What are my other options? Question you should be consistently thinking about and consistently answering in your materials, because this is what your prospects and your audience members are thinking about, even if they don't voice it. Most of the time they won't. You need to answer it before they come up with a reason to not do business with you, because they're always trying to think of reasons why not to do anything. The human being is inherently lazy, and our default is to do nothing. So to get them to do something, which is to do business with you, you have to move them in a way that they otherwise will not move themselves, as a general rule. Okay, so don't look at this as something to be avoided. Instead, expect it, now that I told you about it, and simply be prepared for it. And preparation is the hallmark of the professional. So you always want to be prepared for what's coming in whatever game you're in. Point number 3, we're talking here today about why business is a contact sport. And after this point, I'll recap what I've shared and we'll open up for some discussions. Hopefully you all have some stuff for us here, but let me get through the third point. In business and as an entrepreneur, you will have many opportunities, numerous opportunities to go off track, off script, and be distracted from the main objective. So first of all, you must have a main objective. All right, the only way you can get distracted from the main objective is if there is a main objective. So what is the main objective of your business? What's yours in business? You should know. If you don't know, you might already be off track and distracted right now, because if there is no main objective, then there's no way to get focused. Focus requires a target. So if there's no target, then you can't be focused. And because there is no North Star, meaning there's no main goal or outcome of what you're doing, if you don't have that main objective, then you need to take time and get really clear on what that main outcome is for your business and stay focused on it at all times while not allowing yourself to be distracted by anything else. And the thing about distractions, as a little side note here, is that distractions are relative. Anything could be a distraction if you decide to pay attention to it. But when you're focused, no distractions exist, even though the circumstances haven't changed. So right now, as I'm sitting here talking to you all, I'm live on Instagram. I can pay attention I can look at the screen on Instagram and I can see that I'm here in Breakfast with Champions on Clubhouse on 2 different phones. And I have my notes in front of me. Those are the things that I'm focused on. But I could get distracted by the door to my left. I can get distracted by everything that's going on in the window outside of this window, where there's a little thunder shower going on in Miami right now. The car is pulling into a parking lot I can see across the street. I can get distracted by all those things, but as soon as I decide to focus on what I'm talking about and the audience who I'm serving, then those distractions no longer exist. So distractions are relative. They only exist when you give them attention. You give no attention to other things other than your main focus, then there are no distractions. So anytime any of you finds yourself getting constantly distracted, and I get questions from people all the time, they say, Dre, how can I avoid distractions? I tell them, well, you're asking the wrong question. Let's flip that around. What you actually need to do is find focus. Focus on finding focus. Because when you're focused, those same things that were distracting you 5 minutes ago no longer distract you. So I could get distracted by who's emailing me right now, how many DMs do I have on Instagram, what text came through, what am I going to eat for lunch today from my meal delivery service? I don't know what's in that container. I get distracted by all of those things, and they don't go away when I decide to focus. I'm just not paying attention to them. Therefore, my focus level goes up. So the whole point here is the hard part about all of this as an entrepreneur, there are always a whole lot of other things that you could give your attention to, a whole lot of anything else's, a whole lot of others vying for your attention outside of your main thing. So the challenge here is not about in what you are dealing with and all these other things, because we all have a whole bunch of other things in our lives. The challenge is, what do you not deal with? How much are you willing to ignore and be oblivious to, so that you can stay focused on whatever that main goal is? And this is not always as easy as it sounds. I know I'm making it sound easy, but it's not always easy. It's easier to talk about than it is to do. So if you look at your smartphone, the home screen on your smartphone, ask yourself how often you get distracted by anything on that screen to the detriment of what you're actually supposed to be doing for your business over the course of a day. And studies have shown that even high-level CEOs of Fortune 500 companies average about 45 minutes of productive work per day, even though they are technically on the clock for 8 to 10 hours. Most people at work usually get about 2 to 3 hours of productive work done every single day. So any of you who's averaging out how much your time is worth, you shouldn't be dividing by 8 hours a day, because you're not doing 8 hours of dedicated work. Most people are doing a little less than half of that. So the whole point here is, where are you focused? And is that focus prioritized to where you're getting that done is the first thing, the most important thing you get done every single day? Do you know what the most important thing is? And how often, and as I recap my points, we'll get into back to the contact sport part of this. But make sure you're not getting contacted by the distractions, because the distractions are going to try to contact you over and over and over and over again. And remember that the people who make these phones and the applications on these phones, they are smart engineers. They're scientists, mind scientists, whose very job is to figure out how to keep you distracted, to keep you paying attention to their thing. You could be focused on Facebook, and unless you work for Facebook, all right, then you shouldn't be paying attention to Facebook. You can get focused on it, but is that a distraction from the main thing that you're doing? Mark Zuckerberg should be focused on Facebook. All right, that's him doing his business. You, on the other hand, probably should not. So think about what the main thing is in your business and see how much time are you actually giving to that, as opposed to everything else that is, again, vying for your attention. Let me recap these points here, and we'll open up for some discussion. Hopefully you all got some stuff for us here in this conversation. The topic is, business is a contact sports. And again, this is about both the rough and tumble side of business, and also about staying in touch with the people who are in your world, who you want to do business with and who you would like to do business with you. Number one, days of just coming up with an idea, throwing it out there, and the world coming to your feet, building it, and they will come, are completely over, if any of you even knew about it. And those days have been over for a long time. Why? Because there's simply more activity online, and there are more people vying for attention. More entities like Amazon, Netflix, they're vying for attention against you selling your book. So you have to figure out ways to stay in touch with your audience and get them to do what you want them to do, as opposed to what everybody else is trying to get them to do. So this is a big competition. It's a royal rumble going on every single day. Number two, so this is where the contact sport part of it comes in. So this doesn't mean bumping into people and throwing elbows. It means, who are the people you want to do, but know or remember that you exist. Remembering that just because you contacted someone once doesn't mean they're going to do what you want them to do. Most of the time they don't. Whether that's a collaborator, whether that's a customer. You have to contact people over and over again, sometimes more than one way. Sometimes message A didn't reach them, message B and C didn't reach them, but message D does get their attention, and it hits them at the right time, and then they respond back to you. Now you can do business with them. But if you didn't do messages A, B, and C, you never would have got to message D, and therefore you would have missed that opportunity. This is why that contact matters so much. How consistently are you making contact? Number three, in business and as an entrepreneur, you will have many opportunities to go off track, off script, and be distracted from your main objective. And again, other entrepreneurs' main job, and when I say entrepreneurs, I mean not only individual people, but also the Amazons, the Netflix, the whatever new app comes out, the TikToks, all of those applications and all those companies out there are all trying to distract you. Look at your email inbox. How many possible distractions are in your email inbox right now that have nothing to do with the main thing that you need to get done in business for your business today? How many possible distractions do you have in there? Probably a lot. So these are all things that you need to find your focus, so that These are all things that require you to find your focus so that you don't get distracted by them, even though they're giving their best effort to distract you. So with all that said, let me open up the floor here. Let's have some conversation. Hopefully you all got some things to add, ask, or share on this topic of business being a contact sport. The mic is open. Or was I just perfect today? So nobody has anything to add. I'll keep going for another 5 minutes if nobody has anything to add. Well, while I wait, I will let you all know that, again, I mentioned my daily motivation text message I send out every single day for free. You just text me at my number 305-384-6894. And as I also said earlier, usually I do these segments on Mondays. I do an hour-long segment where I split it up between personal development and professional development, or 30 minutes starting with the personal. Then we build up you. And then the second half, we talk about building your business, which is the professional development. That is in the second half of the segment. So the next one will be this upcoming Monday. I'm going to be on the Pacific time zone. I'll be in Vegas next week. So I'm debating if I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. to do that segment. I probably will, TBD, but I probably will, and knock that out. It'll be 115 degrees in Vegas. That's my kind of weather. So that'll be fun. So anyone got anything to add, ask, or share on this subject? We got 4 minutes here. I left some time. Anybody got anything they want to add, ask, share on the subject of business being a contact sport? I'll wait for 5 seconds here, and then I'll add some more if nobody jumps in. All right, this is amazing. I don't think I've ever had a completely silent 2 times. But while we wait, see if anybody else jumps in, I will let you all know also that Work on Your Game University is where I do all of my stuff. That's the main focus at Work on Your Game world right now, is the university. That's where we have all of our courses, all of our trainings, all of our high level frameworks, all coaching, all of that stuff happens at Work on Your Game University. There's a link up top there, and also on my Instagram bio, and also I think in Clubhouse, workonyourgameuniversity.com. And while I wait on, we got 3 minutes here, talking about the contact that you're making in business. One thing that I will tell you all, the best thing that you could invest in for 2023 as we go into the third quarter, as we're in the third quarter and going into the fourth quarter of this year and into next year, is really learning the game of copy. And not copy as in you see someone doing something, you do the same thing. Copy as in the verbiage that you use to influence and persuade and move people to action. That's known as copy. You may have heard of copywriting. So it's not just writing, but copy is also, if somebody does an ad, you scroll on Instagram, somebody has an advertisement and they're talking, those words are copy. Or you drive, that word or those words on that billboard is copy as well, because all those words are designed to influence and persuade you to do something, usually involving some type of commerce, some type of transaction. The better you get at copywriting, or just copy period, the more your words can move people to action. And you have to be able to do this whether in the written word, the spoken word, and in person to a group, or in person to one individual. So individual like on a Zoom call, to a group like standing on stage. And the written word is in an email or a text message, and the spoken word is in a YouTube video or a sales video that you put on your website. All of these are different ways of copy. There's a book called Copywriting Secrets by Jim Edwards. Is a really good starting point, really good foundational book there. And there are plenty of copywriters out there, so you can look up books on copywriting. But I like Jim Edwards stuff a lot. Dan Kennedy is an older guy. He has a lot of great stuff on copywriting. He doesn't really necessarily teach it directly, but he talks about the pieces that you're going to need to do it. But as far as actually teaching it, like I said, Jim stuff, and just look up books on copywriting. There are a lot of older guys wrote about it. A lot of newer people don't talk about it as much because we have the internet. So marketers have gotten generally lazier simply because it's gotten easier. But that skill is a foundational skill you can use in anything. You can use copy skills in a job interview. You can use copy skills on a date. You can use copy skills in anywhere you're trying to make a sale. All right, you're trying to talk your way into a bar or a club, and the bouncer said nobody else is getting in. Copy skills can get you in if you know how to use your words to persuade and influence other people. So, and that is a sub skill of just communication in general. Again, written communication, spoken communication to individual or to a group, all 4. So with all that said, y'all have been extremely quiet today, so I appreciate your politeness for listening here in this segment. Who am I passing the mic to? I don't know who is up next. Somebody help me out here.
Good morning, Dre.
Good morning, Alexa. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing good. How are you doing? It is Wednesday.
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Loving Wednesdays. I'm like, I think the only person who loves Wednesdays. Only because you've at this point made a lot of accomplishments, and then you still have some time left to finish what you got to finish, which I think is awesome. So, well, good morning, everybody. This is Dr. Alexa D'Agostino, and you are listening to Breakfast with Champions. I don't like, Dre, that you said we have a quiet room. We don't like quiet rooms. So let's get everybody on the mic and give a clap for Dre. Good job, Dre. And good job, Dre. Thank you, Dre.
Appreciate it, everybody.
Dropping some bombs there. I think this is why we're on here. We're on here to collaborate.
So.
We're on here to learn something new.